With The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars introduced a fascinating new landscape by the name of Cloud City. However, even though Cloud City played an integral part in the plot, the floating territory has scarcely appeared since. So, with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is Star Wars 10 Secrets of Cloud City You Need to Know. Number 10. What is Cloud City exactly? Cloud City resides on a gas giant called Bespin in the Ognauts sector, and since this planet is similar to Jupiter, you'd think it would be the last place in the cosmos where life could thrive. But as the Star Wars franchise proves, there is no world where people aren't eager to set up civilization. I mean, people live on Mustafar for Christ's sake. Despite the fact that the planet isn't even solid, Bespin is a hotspot for the elite, since it naturally produces one of the most desirable resources in the galaxy, that being Tabana gas. Because Tabana is the central component for hyperspace travel, space weaponry, and repulsor technology, it's coveted by virtually everyone. When the Tabana miners discovered then that there was a breathable atmosphere 36,000 miles above Bespin's core, a habitable base was constructed there called Cloud City. Now, originally Lando Calrissian hoped to govern the city without any interference from the Empire, but when the Imperials found the planet and discovered it was mining trillions of tons of Tabana gas, they immediately took over the city, hoping to use its resources to advance the Empire. Number 9. How does the city function? Even though we didn't get to see a lot of Cloud City, you can tell just by looking at it that it's bloody enormous. I mean, just look at how long it took for Luke Skywalker to fall to the bottom. It's never been specified how large the structure is, but Cloud City does consist of 392 stories. By comparison, the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, consists of 160 stories, which is around 2,700 feet. However, only the first 50 levels of Cloud City are open to the public, since the bottom 342 levels are for mining and processing precious Tabana gas. However, even though the gas is a valuable commodity, it is very expensive to filter. Also, the 36,000 engines and tractor beam generators which keep the city in the air aren't cheap either. So, to bring in some cash, Cloud City was turned into a luxury resort, and tourists can also hire a flying car to sightsee or check out the local mines. Put simply, it would be way out of my price range. Number 8. It was supposed to appear in the first movie. It's common knowledge among Star Wars fans that George Lucas redrafted the script for the original movie about 10 bajillion times, give or take. At one point, the story was meant to focus on Samuel L. Jackson's character Mace Windu, and in another draft, Luke Skywalker was a 60-year-old general who trained a pupil called Starkiller. Lucas also considered having giant bush baby aliens in the climax for some reason. I don't know, this was like the 70s, wasn't it? But another alteration that the Star Wars screenplay went through was the removal of Cloud City. In the second draft, concept artist Ralph McQuarrie designed a floating territory, which served as an imperial prison for Princess Leia's homeworld of Alderaan. And even though scenes of Alderaan were meant to be filmed, they were ultimately cut. However, Lucas loved the idea of a habitat hovering in the sky and didn't want to abandon it. As a result, he repurposed McQuarrie's floating imperial prison for the sequel, and then turned it into what we know now as Cloud City. Number 7. The Ugnaughts keep everything working. As Darth Vader's forces freeze Han Solo in carbonite, several small pigmen called Ognauts can be seen operating the machinery in the background. Because these creatures are mainly in the background and have no dialogue, you would assume that they're not particularly that important. But as will become abundantly clear on this list, everyone and everything in Star Wars has an unnecessarily complex backstory. When Cloud City was devised, for instance, the Ugnaught tribes were brought in to work on its construction, since they were known for performing monotonous tasks skillfully for an extended period of time. Because the Ugnauts' territory as well was being taken over by the Galactic Empire at the same time, they agreed to this deal to avoid their people being enslaved by Imperial troops. But when Darth Vader seized Cloud City, the Ugnaughts were forced to work with the Empire anyway, against their will. Even though these critters turned Han Solo into a popsicle and tried to melt C-3PO into slag, the Ugnaughts aren't evil. Like many creatures throughout the galaxy, they just do what they must to survive. Number 6. Who or what is Lobot? One of the most mysterious citizens of Cloud City is Lando Calrissian's trusty aide and personal chef, Lobot. Despite never uttering a word, the cybernetic implants on his head help the character stand out, making viewers curious of Lobot's purpose on Bespin. And originally, he was a regular human who performed battlefield calculations for the Empire. After meeting Lando, Lobo became a smuggler, and although he lost his original memories, personality, and even the ability to speak, became instrumental in the growth of his home Bespin, since Cloud City's central network was implemented directly into his mind. As a result, Lobot is tethered to the city's entire mainframe, making him arguably the most significant person on the whole planet. Number 5, what's that vein that Luke hangs on? After Vader famously defeated Luke Skywalker and lopped off his hand, the young Jedi jumped down the air shaft, seemingly plummeting to his doom. Even though Luke looked like he had no chance of surviving, he just happened to land on a perfectly placed vein, where he was rescued then by his companions. Now, most first-time viewers had the exact same thought upon seeing this moment. Why is there a freaking weather vane just out there? But as all Star Wars fans know, everything has a backstory. Celestia's Crumb has a backstory, Han Solo's jacket has a backstory, and yes, even the weather vane has a backstory. First off, it's actually not a weather vane, I've been wrong this whole entry, it's actually a gas processing vane. These instruments are designed to filter, stabilize, and store Tabana gas, as you probably have guessed, and they are positioned at the bottom of Cloud City since that is where the mineral is the most potent. So yeah, that's right, George Lucas gave a backstory to a piece of metal to justify a plot convenience. Number 4. There were some significant changes in the special edition. In 1997, Lucasfilm released the first of several special editions of the original Star Wars trilogy. Even though fans did appreciate seeing the classic movies in perfect quality with crisp sound, they were also horrified to learn that George Lucas had made some absolutely unnecessary changes. I mean, why he thought the world wanted to see Cy Snootles perform a music solo in Return of the Jedi is just, well, that's anybody's guess, isn't it? Despite viewers grumbling, several changes in The Empire Strikes Back, though, were quite welcome. While our heroes are running around the corridors in the original version, for instance, it was obvious that the actors were just on a soundstage. But in the special edition, digital effects were used, so the walls in the background were replaced with windows showing off the futuristic landscape of the city. Even though many changes in the special edition are totally irritating, these little tweaks are acceptable since they make the scenes more distinctive without ever feeling too distracting. Number 3, the actors were drunk in their Cloud City scenes. While filming The Empire Strikes Back, Carrie Fisher stayed at one of Eric Idle's flats for 5 whole months. And when the Rolling Stones came over, Fisher invited her co-star Harrison Ford over because, hey, who doesn't want to party with Keith Richards? Even though Fisher was allergic to alcohol and Ford wasn't much of a drinker apparently either, they knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and so got absolutely smashed with the legendary musicians and the Monty Python comedian throughout the night. The following morning, Fisher and Ford headed straight to the set and filmed the scene where their characters arrive in Cloud City for the first time. Since they hadn't slept a wink, because why would ya, Fisher and Ford were completely drunk while performing their scenes. And considering they consumed a beverage known as the Tunisian death drink, it's probably no surprise that it took a while for the effects to wear off. Number 2, what is that running man doing? After watching the Star Wars films a dozen times, you might notice tiny details in the background that you would never give a second thought to upon your first viewing. Such an example occurs in The Empire Strikes Back when multiple Imperial workers dash through Cloud City after the Rebel forces take over. Although a lot is going on in this scene, some eagle-eyed viewers only had one question in their mind. Why is there a guy in the background holding an ice cream maker? Well, despite appearing for just a split second, this character, Wilro Hood, has a backstory because of course he does. He was working on the Harbinger Star Destroyer, but was asked to evacuate after the Rebel Alliance hijacked the facility. Grabbing whatever valuables he could find, Wilro stuffed them into a container called a Camtono, aka the ice cream maker, and then just fled. Of course, this container became so iconic that it has actually been implemented into other Star Wars properties, including recently The Mandalorian. Number 1, a Cloud City may actually be possible. As entertaining as the Star Wars universe is, we all know that it's just pure fantasy, right? Right? Well, maybe not entirely. And even though a city hovering in the clouds sounds like utter fiction, astrophysicists suggest otherwise. According to NASA researcher Jeffrey Landis, a floating cloud city could exist over an inhospitable world like Venus. Despite the fact that it snows metal and rains acid on Earth's neighboring planet, the atmosphere just above Venus is surprisingly tolerable for human life to thrive. And because the sun's second closest planet is overstuffed with floating gases like nitrogen and oxygen, the idea of keeping a city in the air isn't that far-fetched, at least according to Landis. So the next time you hear someone tell you that Cloud City is completely ridiculous and it doesn't make any sense, well, set them straight. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did you know all of these facts about Cloud City, and are there any really interesting ones I missed off here? While you're down there as well, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to What Culture Star Wars for more lists like this on the regular. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.